Hi everybody, it is Melissa from Melissa vs. Fibromyalgia here, and I am so pleased to be able to give you this full roundup. So I had a hysterectomy and endometriosis excision surgery 4 weeks ago now, and I have provided little updates along the way, but I did promise I would provide a bit of a roundup. So I gave kind of my week by week experience in those videos, and I'll link them for you so you can see them, because I think it's really important. I really wanted to know what it was like for people having surgery with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, you know, all of those bits of details about recovery, because the unknown is very scary. And although we're all different, I hope that my story helps you. Today I wanted to go into all the details. Now I am going to give lots of details, so there may be some things that are TMI for you, but I want to make sure you have all of the information because there's a lot of bits and pieces. So if that's what you're interested in and you want to hear all about all of the nitty-gritty details of what it's like to have this surgery, carry on. So I guess the first thing we should talk about is preparation. It's very hard to go into surgery healthy or well prepared when you're going into surgery because you have a dire health issue. My periods have gotten, like, they really progressed, like the last more than a year, like year and a bit. They've gotten worse and worse and worse, and that was really depleting my health, really taking me backwards, and I was really feeling burnt out. I was not in a good place. I was barely coping, and the only way I got by the last few periods is knowing that there was an end goal in mind, an end date. And so I couldn't really prepare in the way that you might want to, but I did my best. My main focus was in calming the nervous system, so I just made sure I was getting into the parasympathetic state as much as possible and keeping on top of everything as much as possible. And so I did a nervous system challenge with a free download, which I can link for you. But mostly I was keeping up with my yoga nidra, doing my yoga, going for walks, all of the good stuff, and my breath work, which really came in handy. Like, having a solid understanding of breath work and being able to use it when I need it has become so helpful for me. I used it to get through labor, particularly with my fourth baby. I arrived at the hospital about an hour or less before he was born, so I dealt that entire labor with my breath, and then even still, once I used the gas only, but it's really about your breath. So it's really come in handy for me, and it came in handy for me with this story. So I guess the first thing is like pre-op. So I had to go into the hospital early in the morning. I'm not very good at getting up early, and I'm definitely not very good at getting up without eating or having coffee, but I did it. I arranged everything so that I just got up, got dressed, got in the car and left. My husband was doubtful. He didn't think I'd left enough time, but I knew that I needed to be able to just get up, do what I needed to do, and get out the house. And I did, and it was good. We got there. It was a lot of, you have to do a COVID test and you have to do all sorts of tests. They shaved me everywhere, all of it, gone, shaved by a nurse. So that was fun. And they put on my compression stockings, and then I waited for my turn. I was second in the day, so that was pretty good. And I gave them a full rundown in my admission sheets of, what I needed them to know, the fact that I really can't tolerate tramadol, that I hardly take medicines. I had stopped my low-dose naltrexone for 48 hours. That's what the anesthesiologist recommended and what the low-dose naltrexone research trust recommended. Interesting story about that coming up as well. And I was trying to be really careful with them and really explain the fact that I have sacroiliac joint dysfunction. So my low back, where it joins, is basically ruined from my pregnancies. The joints relaxed too much, and so in my fourth pregnancy particularly, they would go out of place, and that should never happen. And I tried to warn them that I never ever lie flat on my back, and that they need to be really careful how they position my legs when I have no control, because when I'm in control, I barely let them, like, they always have to move symmetrically, and I can barely move them apart. Obviously, lying on the table flat for the operation, it was only about an hour and a half, I think, but it really stirred it up. So my low back has been worse than the stitches basically this whole time, even till now, 4 weeks later. But I did my best to let them know, and of course there's only so much that they can do. They've got a job to do. But anyway, so then I went into surgery. I don't remember much except being really overwhelmed by going to the room and seeing so many people there. But I essentially climbed, they asked me to climb from the bed I came into, the surgery bed, and then I remember nothing else. So I didn't even see a gas mask, didn't see a thing. But when I woke up in agony. So they suspect that the low-dose naltrexone hadn't cleared off my receptors, so it was interfering with the morphine working. So when I woke up, the morphine was not working. I was in incredible amounts of pain. I could hear blood pressure monitors going off, so obviously my heart rate was going really high because I was in extreme pain, and I was like, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. And so they had, you know, the IV, and like they had a timer to go off, and like every however many minutes they'd put more morphine into my hand trying to keep it going in because it just wasn't working. They ended up putting me on a ketamine drip, which helped, but for that first, I don't know how long, hour after surgery, I just had to breathe through the pain. So I literally went into my breath. And the nurse actually asked me if I had relaxation training. I was like, I'm a yoga teacher. So my breathing really got me through, and it got me through much more times of that as well, because it was a kind of difficult first 24 hours. But eventually things calmed down and I got put into my room. I could not open my eyes. I don't know why, but the whole night I hardly slept, but I could not open my eyes. I don't think I react well to morphine. So I was awake, but I couldn't keep my eyes open. So that was really difficult because it means the only thing you have to focus on is the pain. And it actually got to the point, and so when you press the pain pump, it will only work every 5 minutes. And there were times where I was sure it had been more than 5 minutes and that I had waited so long and I was in so much pain, but the button didn't work because it wasn't yet 5 minutes. So I spent a lot of time just breathing through the pain. The first night was really rough because the monitors kept going off. They had constant monitors. I had oxygen, blood pressure, and heart rate monitor on constantly, and the machines kept taking turn beeping, and I would like press the button to call for someone, and the only someone who would come was like a nurse's assistant, and they couldn't figure out how to fix it. And in the end they turned it off, and I was like, well, I hope you don't need that, you know, like that's not important, right? And then the next morning they took out the catheter, but I couldn't pee. So after trying for the whole morning to pee, they had to put the catheter back in. It's not the worst, but it's not the best experience to have a catheter put in while you're awake. So that was fun. But the upside was it let me rest for the next 12 hours. So instead of trying to just go to the toilet all the time and have, because my bladder was really riled up, as it should be, like it had a big trauma. But it allowed me to rest. And that night they gave me the quetiapine, because everything kind of had cleared out of my system enough and we didn't feel like there was too much going on. So I had my quetiapine at like 7 o'clock or something, and I went to sleep and I slept through. I woke up every 2 hours when they came in to do the obs. I went straight back to sleep. And so the next morning I felt like an actual person. And so I was able to open my eyes. When they took out the catheter, I was able to go to the toilet properly. And so that was kind of the beginning of the up and up. So for me it was just an extra kind of day than what they expect when you kind of get more mobile. Getting up the first time was hard, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. But yeah, getting up that first time was very difficult, but I did it, and I mobilized. So in the second afternoon when my husband came to visit me, I had him walk with me down to the end of the hallway and back. It was exhausting, but I did it. And then the next morning I went around the whole block, but oh my gosh, that block felt so long. I had no idea that the ward was so big, but I knew that that was going to help me, so I really did it. It was slow and I held onto the banister for dear life, but I did it. So yeah, so that's what the first couple of days was like. Were like. So let's talk about poop. I'm sorry if you don't want to talk about this, but we need to talk about the fact that when you've had a major surgery, your bowels are in a place, right? And when you've had a major surgery like that, you cannot push, no matter how much you desperately want to go. So basically, it wasn't too big of a deal for me. My gas returned pretty quickly. I was Well, I was tooting up a storm, just quietly tooting the whole time. So I feel like my intestines and all my stuff was doing the right job, and I just took the laxatives as prescribed. So they send you home with a medicine. Took it as prescribed, and I think on my second or third day home, I just went, and it was a bit painful, and it wasn't very easy, but I went, and so then I stopped taking the meds. And we did have a few days where it was a bit difficult. It was a bit constipated, but it got into the rhythm, and so it wasn't too much of a problem for me. I have heard some people have a real problem with it, but that's generally okay for me. But you can take like the Kiwi Crush or those, things that they recommend to help move things through. But I think the laxatives were helpful for me at that time because I was quite uncomfortable until it all moved out. So yeah, that's one thing. Another thing that they talk about is gas pains. So when they like have to blow up your stuff to look for the endometriosis, that gas is in there and has to come out, and so you feel it, and it's like pain right in here and at the back of your shoulder blades. But because my back was so sore, I hardly noticed it. However, I think the second day in the hospital while I was resting, I had a heat back here and a heat back here, and then I had my heat pack in my lower back. So I was covered. And so it wasn't too bad for me. But again, I had two secret weapons that really helped me through it, because when you're not able to move, they want you to do two things. One, wriggle as much of your body as possible to keep it moving, and the other one is to breathe deeply. So I, from the get-go, was doing my deep, controlled breathing. I call it blow out the candle when I'm talking with my kids about it. So you breathe in slowly through your nose, and very slowly breathe it out. So you don't want to like spit on the candle, but you just want to slowly breathe it out. And by doing that slow, controlled breathing, you're making sure that you're filling up your diaphragm and really using your abdomen, and that counts as good movement. That is what your body needs. So I did that regularly, and I think that helped, and I think it moved the gas around. But the other thing I did was continual like wriggling my toes, stretching my feet, making sure my calves are stretched, wriggling my knees. I did like jostle my stomach a little bit, but I did my best to keep my lower body moving, and I also kept my arms moving. So I would like stretch and just move around, because your muscles are made to move. And so I was doing that just to control any pain that might happen, outside of surgery, but it is good to move. And so I think that those things helped also with the gas and to move it through. I guess next maybe we could talk about the incisions. I had it laparoscopically. So I had 3 incisions, one in my belly button, one a little to the left of it, and one like right across my pubic bone, but they're quite small. They didn't cause me too much problem. Like I said, my low back was the issue for me. That really overshadowed it. Yeah, it was, at first obviously it was really hard. Sleeping positions is something we should talk about. So at first I couldn't figure out how to get comfortable in bed, and so for the first couple of nights home I had to sleep on 2 pillows to keep my body upright, but that really upset my neck and shoulders. They do not like that. So what I found on the 3rd night, which naturally would have felt a bit better anyway with the incisions healing, but on the 3rd night what I did is added a second pillow to, so I always have a pillow under my knees because of my low back, and so I always sleep with the pillow under my knees, but I added a second one. So it was a little bit like a miniature legs on a cushion pose, and having my legs up like that just made it comfortable, and I was able to sleep well. And then after a few days, as I got better, what I did is I moved the pillow down so that it was less high, but like my legs were still a little elevated, and it was not letting my stomach pull as much. And so now I could probably get rid of the second pillow, but it seems to be really comfortable and I'm really liking it, so I haven't moved it yet. So that might be a tip that helps you. On the first few days I came home, what I did is I had an electric heating pad, and so when I reclined in my lazy boy in the lounge, I got the heating pad out and had it on my back and lower back and middle back, and then I had my heat pack on my neck, and so that's how I spent the early days at home. And then after a few days I stopped bringing out the heat pack from my room, mostly because I had to get someone else to plug it in and out for me, because you can't bend, of course. And then by that point I mostly was by myself, or I didn't want to ask people to do things for me because they were busy with the kids. But that worked really well to manage the pain. The other thing is eating surprised me. So weirdly, some of my tastes have changed since surgery. I actually can't tolerate proper coffee anymore. So I just have my instant Moccona coffee in the morning, and then what I do is have a half instant Moccona coffee with frothed milk at morning tea time, and that's it. I'm not having full coffees. And for the first 2 weeks I ate really small meals, so I was really hungry, but I found it very difficult to eat. So it was really hard to find what I wanted to eat, and then once I started eating I'd get full really quickly. So that was interesting and surprising. But lots of protein is the recommendation, so I have been eating a lot of protein. I've been letting my body dictate, so I've been eating a lot of bacon and eggs, a lot of meat patties, basically a lot of meat and a lot of vegetables. That's what my body wants, and I'm eating lots of it. So I'll share more about my food journey soon, if that interests you, because I've been learning a lot and really actually have changed the way I'm eating. So yeah, I think that's everything. If you have any more questions, if you have something I haven't covered, please do put the question in the comment, because I am happy to answer it for you. I'm not excluding anything on purpose. When you're tired, you just forget stuff, right? I guess one thing to update on is the orthostatic intolerance. So I was never properly diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, but if I was, then I should have been checked for POTS or orthostatic intolerance. So dysautonomia is like a header for a lot of different conditions that essentially affect your nervous system and your automatic functions like breathing. And when I'm more fatigued, my heart rate will climb very high and my blood pressure is low. And something about that disconnect is a bit dangerous, and I nearly faint. And so my heart rate has been rising from simple everyday activities. So I've had to be very careful managing the fatigue. So the fatigue has been really a big player in the game. But again, I think that's all as it should be. Like, that's just what will happen for someone who experiences that stuff. But it's been really interesting to learn more about it, and I've been documenting what I've been experiencing so that I can talk to my doctor about it, because I brought it up several times over the years and they just say get up more slowly and eat more salt, and that's not really cutting it. It's making me feel a little unsafe and vulnerable at times. So yeah, I'm going to look into that. But 4 weeks post-op, I'm so excited. We've already had the first time where my period would have come, and even 1 week post-op, I was in less pain than I would have been if my period had come. So although I can get a bit disappointed about the fact that obviously the neck pain might not magically get better, the fatigue might not magically get much better, the fact that I won't have these pains, no period, no blood loss, all of the things I've been dealing with, and the extreme uncertainty and the gaslighting and the being ignored when there really was something going on, all of that has made it worth it. So it's been rough, but it's been worth it, and I am really thankful that I got it done, and that I got it done by a good surgeon, because if you get it done by a surgeon who knows what they're doing and they get all of the endometriosis out, it is highly unlikely for it to recur. It is apparently only likely to recur if they just didn't get it in the first place. And apparently if you have a skilled surgeon, and if you have someone like me who's older and it's like really developed, then you're very unlikely to miss that stuff. And when you take out the uterus as well, all of that chemical process and hormonal process that's part of it should all contribute to it staying away. So I'm really excited and really thankful, and can't wait to see what the next 6 to 12 months holds. I just have to teach myself patience. All right, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Leave any questions or comments below so that I can get back to you, and I'll catch you again soon.